This week on The Startup Life.
And so the reason that I'm so confident that I can drive those types of results for folks is I'm not just throwing people into a course and saying, all right, there it is. I hope for the best. I actually come along and I do three things.
All right, Startup Nation. So let's take flight with Lee Blue, founder of DoubleStack.net. The Startup Life begins now.
7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
You'll never have the sacred stone.
Oh, this you crazy mother.
Hey, Startup Nation. Do you enjoy the startup life? Now you can let the world know with gear from the show. Choose from the label yourself, make your own look, and making money t-shirts to tell your story of your path of entrepreneurship. Click the link in the show notes to purchase. All right, Startup Nation. So I hope you're ready to receive some value today. We got a special guest in the building. He's on this side of the microphone for a podcast for the first time. We got Mr. Lee Blue out of Virginia. What's going on, Lee?
Not too much. It's great to be here. Thanks for having me. I'm really excited.
No worries, no worries. Are you ready to pour some knowledge in the Startup Nation today?
I would love to. This is going to be great.
Awesome. Let's do it. So, Lee, first things first, man. Tell us your story on your path to entrepreneurship and tell us a little bit about DoubleStack.
Okay, sure. Yeah. So this is a really fun thing to talk about because I actually graduated from college with a degree in computer science and went straight into like this really high-tech position. I was doing bio-terrorism surveillance for the United States government. And while I was doing that, it's an interesting thing because I started to, have some more entrepreneurial thoughts going on. And at the same time, my wife and I were having like our first baby. And that was really cool because the baby was born. I was able to figure out how to work from home a little bit from my job and everything was going great. But the interesting thing was that everything in the house began to get kind of noisy in the sense that, people were coming to the house and visiting the baby and the baby was crying. My wife is home now. And I wanted to stay home too. And so I actually started shopping around for these like noise reduction headphones. Okay. And like I got all the different ones you can think of, right? Like the Bose ones, Sennheiser, Audio-Technica. I came across this guy's site. His name was John, lives in Missouri. And he had this like mess of a website. And, but he had these really interesting looking headphones on it. Like they're kind of bulky, like the headphones that you might think of as maybe what you would wear if you're going to like run a chainsaw or something. But he had built into it these really high quality studio speakers. And so I bought the headphones kind of reluctantly because the website was one of those black sites with like the twinkling stars. And this is around like 2005.
For sure.
And so anyway, so I got these headphones and they were really, really nice. So I contacted John and told him the story. Like I just told you about how I have all these other headphones here, but his were blocking more sound and worked really well for being able to kind of work from home. And could I help him, update his website because it was just a mess. Well, at the time, he didn't really care too much about the website because he was selling all the headphones through a music catalog. Okay. And he said, well, I'll tell you what we can do. If you want to build a website, then, you can just, buy these headphones from me at like a wholesale rate, and then you sell the headphones off your own website. And so that's actually what we did. So I started ordering these crates of like boxes to like, I think 26 or 25 came in a box. And so we had these crates of headphones coming. I was storing them up in the attic, and my wife was helping me ship them through FedEx and everything when people were buying them. And it really, that was an interesting thing because that's where I first got into WordPress and how to like build websites for like, small businesses. And because I needed to do it for myself, I built an eCommerce plugin and to be able to sell the headphones through the WordPress website and everything. And that really started things off. And people started wanting to kind of use my plugin to sell stuff on their sites. And the next thing I know, I'm kind of getting into, more and more of the arena of entrepreneurs and web designers and people that work with WordPress and build websites for themselves and their clients. And that really kicked things off to the point where I was able to actually, quit my job as, the guy that was doing all this kind of, high tech work and actually start doing, web design work and web consulting for all kinds of startup businesses. And that kind of what kind of kicked me into it. So yeah, does that kind of get to the point?
No, it absolutely does, man. I was going to ask about that a little bit later about the computer science degree and stuff like that, because I was curious, how you got into web design or something like that, like what steered you in that direction. So no, that definitely covers it for sure. But I do want to ask a quick follow-up question, because you mentioned something that's just too interesting to pass up. So you talked about doing some work about, in bio-terrorism surveillance, man. You got to tell me a little bit about that, man. It sounds exciting.
It sounds a lot more exciting than it probably actually was.
Okay.
Basically, the idea was, do you remember back when there was like the avian bird flu and anthrax and stuff like that was kind of going around?
Yes.
It was that was around the same time, and basically what my job was I was analyzing the emergency health records from a bunch of different hospitals up and down the East Coast. And if there were any sort of anomalies, like say, for example, New York City, everybody starts having some sort of a respiratory problem that's outside of the range of what they normally do, then I could trigger flags and can kind of send that up, say, hey, maybe there's something going on. And so that was kind of the idea, to try to in batch take all of the emergency medical reports that came from all the hospitals on a nightly basis and then analyze them programmatically to figure out if everything was kind of in line with what the problems people normally have, or if there's something crazy going on.
Gotcha. Thank you for sharing that, man. I appreciate that for sure. That like I said, when I saw that in my research and then you mentioned it, so I was like, nah, I gotta ask this guy about that for sure. So no, I appreciate that for sure. So let me ask you this, man, because you've been building websites and showing people how to build websites and stuff for some time, and you kind of mentioned that the guy you was working with the headphones had one of those very twinkle star in the sky type websites and stuff like that. So it wasn't that appealing. So let me ask you this, man. What's the most fascinating thing that you have seen as far as the evolution of website design from the early 90s until now? What's the most fascinating thing you've seen up until this point?
Oh, that's a really interesting question. There's really been 3 iterations of where I can kind of 3 distinct eras of web design. The first one was when I first kind of got into shifting out of the government work and more into building websites and connecting with local businesses and things like that. My first approach was to connect in with ad agencies and direct people that do direct mail and try to provide an online component to what might traditionally be an offline marketing campaign. And it was really hard to do. This was even WordPress wasn't really a thing. And the people that worked at these ad agencies didn't really have an in-house web team of any sort. And so what I would do is I would connect in with all of these different ad agencies, kind of local around Virginia and Richmond primarily. And when they were doing advertising for folks, they would then outsource the website part to me. And so that was pretty cool, because I could then kind of hand code these websites and build different we did a lot of work with companies that were trying to get students to apply to go to college. And so they would send out all this paper mail, trying to invite the students to apply. And if they wanted to apply online, then they could click a link and then type in this little code, and then the application would be partially filled out for them with all the stuff that we knew about them up front. They didn't have to type in their name and address and the stuff that we knew prior to them actually filling out the app. And so there was this online way to kind of do that. And it was kind of tricky, and you needed a web guy to do that sort of stuff. Gotcha. And so that was kind of phase 1, where I was just doing web design work for kind of behind the scenes. Nobody really knew anything about who I was. I was just doing the technical implementation, and the people that worked at the ad agencies, they were doing all the graphic stuff. So I didn't have to worry about graphic design. I just got that, turned it into a website. And that was phase 1. Phase 2 was, now something like WordPress is out there where there's themes. And what began to happen was the ad agencies, they would begin to train their graphic designers how to kind of build websites themselves. And so that began to take a significant chunk of my business away, because people were kind of building that in-house, and they didn't really need anybody to build a website, because you could kind of point and click your way to a pretty good looking site. But what they couldn't do is if they needed to do something kind of like that multi-page form concept that we were talking about with the college applications, that was kind of hard. And eCommerce was kind of hard. It wasn't, you kind of needed to know how to deal with payment security and stuff like that. And so, the more complicated things began, and also themes themselves. There weren't very many good web designs just kind of off the shelf. And so people would make, designs in Photoshop or something like that. And then I would then convert that into a WordPress theme or something. And so that's kind of phase 2, where, like the more complicated stuff that still needed to be done kind of manually with somebody who had an understanding of how to like write code and stuff. And but still partnering up with these ad agencies and kind of helping them. And so I didn't really have to do too much with like client acquisition or anything, because the ad agencies would do all that. And so I was just kind of, the technical implementer person.
Right.
And that worked out really well because I was really good at it, and they needed kind of more advanced stuff. So that kind of worked out pretty well, but they were still able to kind of maintain the site going forward because WordPress is there. The content management aspect of things was stuff that they could kind of do on their own. And so that sort of was phase 2, where now people are kind of more hands-on, but still need help with kind of technical, harder to do kind of things.
Right.
And then what happened was phase 3 happened. And so WordPress became much more popular. And, I think it's currently running about a third of the internet now.
Right.
There's tons of WordPress themes out there, so you can make your site look really awesome. There's page builders so that, even graphic designers and people that don't know anything about code or whatever can build a really nice looking website. There's all kinds of eCommerce plugins. There's all kinds of form plugins. There's plugins to do pretty much everything. And so we've really shifted into this new thing. And this is, you asked what I thought was the most interesting. This is the most interesting because on one hand, you would think, oh, well, now, the guy that used to do what I did, kind of partnering up with ad agencies, taking overflow work or whatever. Well, now there's no job for him anymore. What are you supposed to do? But the reason that it's so interesting is I actually think the opportunity is now on the side of the person who is capable of doing all of the things. Like I would say, you don't really need the full-blown ad agency anymore. And sometimes you do, of course, depending on, how huge the client is or whatever. But for most local businesses that are trying to, get more clients, increase their brand visibility, have a better online presence, not just with their website, but with Facebook and different kinds of digital marketing, you can do that almost entirely by yourself. In fact, pretty much entirely by yourself.
Right.
And I think that's really cool because all the stuff that used to be hard with like securing a website, getting themes together, all the plugins that do the fancy stuff, the complicated stuff, all that's kind of sitting right there. You can do that, but you don't have to have the overhead of like a huge team of people to kind of make all that happen. And so the end result is now a single person, like what I tend to help people do the most is, somehow get to the point where an individual web design consultant, I usually call them business consultants that have the ability to do technical things too. That's kind of the DoubleStack idea. You asked a little bit about DoubleStack a minute ago. The DoubleStack is there's the tech stack, there's the business development stack.
Right.
That's those two areas of focus. That's where the name came from. And if you've got those abilities, if you can do both of those two things, now you can do amazing stuff at significantly more affordable prices than a full-blown agency, but still drive fantastic results for your clients. And I think that's freaking exciting. That's really, really exciting because now instead of just building a website that doesn't really do anything, that, you kind of build the website and move on to the next client. I call that client hopping, where you just go from client to client to client to client, kind of doing what they say to do, but not actually getting them the results that they're looking for because you're not sticking with them. Like now you have the ability to kind of not only build out the online presence, but also come to the table with like some leadership and some integrity and some confidence, and to be able to lift your clients to a level of success that they wouldn't be able to get had it not been for working with you. That's the big difference that I think is really exciting because you can legitimately drive huge results. And so it's better for you because you're getting paid to do it, and you don't have to spend as much time writing proposals and hunting for clients and all this stuff because you have these ongoing relationships with your clients. So more of your time is billable. It's better for your clients because now they're actually getting somebody who's generating results, not just like technical stuff, but actual new leads, new clients, more income, that kind of stuff. And then it just goes straight down the line because now your clients are able to get customers for their business too. And most of the people that I work with can do pretty cool stuff. Like I tend to work with a lot of people in the medical field, like functional medicine doctors and stuff, who are like able to like legitimately give people their lives back, like have digestive issues that confine them to their house, or, all kinds of inflammatory stuff. And they're able to get folks off of like prescription medications that kind of mask symptoms and kind of get better at, figuring out what the root causes of these issues are. And I'm able to help them connect in with clients in a way that they couldn't do before. And so, now people that they're able to help are actually getting, some really nice benefits too. So that's why I feel like what we're in right now is the most exciting time ever before when it comes to like online marketing, building websites, being like a business consultant that focuses on digital marketing.
Got you. Thank you for sharing that. And I love how, you kind of broke it down in ears. I appreciate that. That actually speaks to your acumen that, you are well versed in the industry and you pay attention to trends and stuff like that. And that's one thing, Startup Nation, that you need to be mindful of when you're in your business on your path to entrepreneurship. You need to be mindful of not just your business, but your industry as a whole to notice those trends and to be able to pivot and things of that nature in order to be successful. So Lee, I appreciate you sharing that for sure.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you.
No worries. So let me ask you this, man, because you mentioned DoubleStack and I wanted to get into, why it's called DoubleStack a little bit later, but, you brought it up now. So let's go ahead and bring that out, now. So, you talk about it being the bringing together of those technical skills of web development and also those business skills as well. Tell us a little bit more about DoubleStack and those things as well.
Okay, yeah. So that's a really cool thing because this kind of really ties in nicely to what you just asked about what's really exciting. Mm-hmm. And the cool thing is that if you come to the table with both of those things, you can legitimately produce really cool results for your clients. What I find to be the case, like I do a lot of presentations at like WordCamps and WordPress meetup groups and just folks that are kind of in the business of either trying to get into their own web design business, or if not that, at least trying to, ramp up what they currently have in a way. And what I'm finding people are saying is that, a lot of objections, I guess, that people have kind of in the web design industry are like either the clients, they don't know how to like connect with clients. There aren't any clients, or, every time they try to connect with someone, they just kind of get blown off. Or, maybe the price point, like they say the price, and as soon as they say a price, $1,000 or more, everyone's like, oh, that's too expensive. I can't afford that. And so there's all of these kinds of issues going on with regard to building your business, getting clients, getting the pricing that you need. And so people tend to kind of fall back to saying, hey, well, there's all of these technical services out there that like people can build a website on their own, like business owners. Like, in fact, my daughter's piano teacher, we talked about, she talked to my daughter, it's like, hey, I know your dad does digital marketing, builds websites and stuff. Can he build me a website? And it's like, I don't really build websites for less than about bare minimum of $3,000. Gotcha. And like my daughter's piano teacher, she don't want to spend $3,000 on a website. So I was like, hey, why don't you just go to Wix and build a website? You can do it yourself. If you need any help, call me. I'll just, talk you through it for a couple minutes for free or whatever. And so that's what she did. And now she has this free website. But what's happening is a lot of web designers out there are competing against free because they're, all these clients that they're talking to are like, oh, I'll just build a website, like the piano teacher just did. And, they've got a couple of pages, a contact form, looks pretty nice. And it's really low cost and sometimes even free. So what the issue is like the technical skills are more readily available in so many more ways now than ever before, either through these things like Wix, Weebly, Squarespace, like places where people can kind of point and click their way to a website, or they're like on like Fiverr or Upwork or, one of these job boards where they're competing with folks that are like overseas or whatever. And, they can legitimately charge less because like a US dollar to them means more than a US dollar to people in the United States. Like, the cost of living is lower, conversion rates, all this other stuff. So it's really difficult to compete on price with these technical skills. And so the technical side of what I do in the DoubleStack program is, in addition to showing people how can you build like a really nice WordPress site, how do you host it, how do you secure it, how do you do the backups, how do you do like a staging environment so you don't have to edit live sites, that kind of stuff. We walk through that. But the real focus is, what kinds of technical tools can you put in place that drive business results for your clients? And so, anybody can go on to YouTube or do a Google search or whatever and figure out how to build a WordPress site. Anybody can do that. Anybody can figure out how to install a theme, put a slider on the homepage, whatever they want to do. That's not a challenging thing. The challenging thing becomes, how can you organize your technical tools and your skill set in a way that actually drives business outcomes? And so what that looks like is, what can you do to get more calls booked or to get more leads in? Or like, what if you want to do like a drip campaign or build a sales funnel or connect a landing page to some sort of an email marketing campaign? Or like, if you've got an email list, how can you begin to learn who on the list is interested in what types of things that you're doing? So like, for example,
Right.
you're working with like a dietitian, and the dietitian can do weight loss, diabetic care, maybe gluten sensitivity. Like, how do you know who on that email list is interested in which of those three things? Because you wouldn't want to send the same information to a weight loss client as you would to a diabetic, or depending on what their interests are, you'd want to send them more targeted information to them. Well, how do you do that? That's a business result, and it requires technical skills to pull that off. And so the focus of the tech stack and DoubleStack is primarily based on how do you drive business results with technical tools? Like, how can you technically implement stuff that matters in terms of getting clients? So that's the tech stack. The business development side is kind of like this 5-step process where, the first part is diving into like, who do you want? Like, what markets? Like, let's take an inventory of your skill set. Because I work with people that have, the ability to build websites, but also other stuff. Like, sometimes they're like fantastic photographers. Maybe they've got videography skills. Maybe they've got really strong graphic design skills, and they can do offline stuff too, like making like restaurant menus or something like that. Something that would be, printable material, like tangible in your hand stuff. And so let's take an inventory of all the skills that you have, in addition to the business development tech tools we just talked about, and say, okay, well, now that we have this kind of unique profile of who you are and what you can do, what markets would be best served with those particular skills? And so that's a huge thing, because most of the time I'll talk to people and they're competing like a sliver of their experience with all of someone else's experience. Like, they'll have like years of experience with all these different things, and then they'll go to a client and say, hey, I'll build you a website. And then there'll be this person that's brand new to it, building like really cheap, ineffective websites, saying, hey, I'll build you a website. So they're saying the same thing, both the new guy and the person who's legitimately very skilled and can drive results. And so therefore, it's not hard to understand why clients are having a hard time, differentiating between who is actually going to do a better job, because they're both saying they're going to build me a website. And so the end result is, you go say, hey, can I build you a website? Almost everybody says, I don't need a website, or I can't afford a website, or whatever.
Right.
And so the concept of the business development side of DoubleStack is, let's take that inventory of your skill set, figure out how you can take all of your experience, all of your knowledge, all of your skills, and show up with leadership and with confidence and authority and integrity. And because you're offering a return on investment, you're offering to do something for a client that's going to be beneficial to them and have a positive return on investment. And then what we'll do is, now that we've taken an inventory of that list, which markets can you best serve with those skill sets? So for example, we talked about like, hey, if you're really good at offline graphic design and you can build websites, then maybe local restaurants are a good market to focus on. If you're really good at running Facebook ads or something, then maybe, there's different markets that would be better for than others. And so we dial in like what markets would be awesome. Then the second step is like, who within those markets are people that you want to work with, because the goal is to have ongoing, long-term, lasting relationships with your clients. Right. As opposed to just kind of client hopping. And when you do that, that really enables you to leverage your time, because you're spending more of your work week doing billable work, because you don't have to go out there and hunt for clients, write proposals, do all the marketing stuff that you have to do for free. And instead, you're doing billable work. And then, of course, you can also leverage your time in a more effective way by charging a higher hourly rate, because, again, you're taking advantage of all of your skill set. So that's kind of step 2, is how do you connect in with clients that are going to be your ideal clients? And thinking about that up front, and avoiding the folks you don't want to work with. So like, absolutely. What about the people that are constantly, putting pressure on you to do a lot of stuff? And so you put pressure on yourself to come to the table and, hit those deadlines, and then they never get back to you with any feedback. So like, all the pressure's on you, none of the pressure's on them. I mean, how much that's kind of grind your gears, right?
Absolutely.
And so like, or what about the person who seems like a good fit, but actually isn't really a very good fit at all? Which would be like, say, somebody who like is really ready to get started. They want to do a lot of stuff. They've got a lot of stuff going on. They're talking really fast. They want to start going. That might seem like a great client up front, but then it turns out that those people oftentimes have, too many irons in the fire. They're scatterbrained. They're not really committed to any one thing. And so, that's kind of a frustrating thing, because you're trying to do all the best job that you can, but they're all over the place and not really focused on what's going on. And so, putting some time in up front to really think through those scenarios, so that you really can connect in with the people that are going to love working with you. You love working with them. You've got this ongoing thing. So that's step 2, really dialing in who you want to work with. Step 3 is how do you do a high value meeting? Like, how do you show up in a way that brings leadership and integrity and confidence to a meeting? And because the thing is, the reason that clients don't invest in any sort of high ticket price point for web development work these days is most web designers show up asking questions like, who's your target audience? What's your budget? I'll tell you what I can do for that price. Or, send me some websites that you like and we'll kind of mimic some of those design features. Just kind of give me some direction on what you want. And of course, all of the burden of success is now entirely on the client. And when that happens, even if the meeting kind of goes well and the client feels happy and everybody's getting along, that's not an indication of confidence. That just means you're nice, right? And so I don't want anyone to think that what I'm suggesting is that web designers are somehow being, mean or dishonest or anything like that. What I'm suggesting is how can you transform the way that you present what you're doing in a way that actually makes a big difference for the clients that you're working on, because you're bringing more leadership. So instead of making the client figure everything out, you're actually coming to the table with solutions. And when that happens, then there's, when basically what I say is leadership breeds confidence. Confidence breeds investment. You have to have that 3-step process, because without leadership, there's no confidence. With no confidence, nobody's going to spend any money. Who would? That would be stupid.
No, that's true.
That's step 3.
No, you're absolutely right. And that's very true, because it's almost kind of like, if you're not confident, then how can you be confident in your product? Then how can I be confident in you to do what I need you to do for me? So no, you're absolutely right. I appreciate you sharing that, Lee, for sure.
Yeah, exactly.
For sure.
And then step 4 is, let me help you with proposals, because a lot of people, they don't know how to write compelling proposals, and they just stuff a lot of technical information into the proposal. Like, I'm going to do design work and branding and Facebook ads and build a website and all these different things. And then, they'll talk about PPC and SEO and all these things that nobody really knows about. The end client, the business owners, they don't know what that stuff is. And so they get overwhelmed and it's disengaging. And so instead of writing proposals like that, I teach my students how to do better than that. How do you take the momentum from that high value meeting and tap into urgency and those proposals? Like, because you're solving a legitimately large problem for someone. So for example, like, if you're going to offer something that's going to double their income, or if they're not getting enough leads, it's going to get them more leads. Like, how much longer does your client want to go, without getting the leads they need? They want to fix that right now, or do they feel like suffering through that for a few more weeks before they fix it, right? So,
right.
So how do you tap into that momentum from that high value meeting into a proposal that really resonates with your clients? So I have a methodology for teaching folks how to pull that off in a way that, it's not at all uncommon for people to come back to me and say, hey, I felt like at one point I was even talking myself out of the sale. They were asking, hey, when can I get started? Where can I sign? Let's do this. And so I just had to shut up and let them sign the contract. So that's the kind of proposal that I'd like to show folks how to put that together, as opposed to, how many times have you sent out a proposal and it just, you think somebody's going to reply, days and weeks go by. It's just crickets, or maybe they'll say, yeah, it looks great, I'll get back to you. But then you never hear anything. It's a fundamentally different kind of a thing from that, compared to someone saying, hey, stop talking, let me get started right now, right?
Right, for sure. So, thank you for sharing. Oh, go ahead.
So then the 5th step, the final step, is the pricing.
Okay.
And dialing in the pricing, really balancing that, is because 2 things can really go wrong with pricing. And I think that, a lot of times you'll talk to folks that, that can really do legitimately cool stuff. Like, they've got the ability to really generate outcomes for folks. And they're offering that, but they're putting this really low ticket price on the offer. And this is one of the things I say all the time. Like, when you go to like New York or something, and there's somebody on the street like selling a Rolex watch, and you're like, oh, that looks great. What's the price? And I'm like, oh, it's $50. Well, you instantly know the Rolex is not $50. You're like, there's no way. You would never buy that, assuming you wanted a Rolex. But here's the thing. What if it really was a Rolex and someone said it was $50? You would still think that's not a Rolex, right?
Right.
The price is just too out of balance with the product, and you would still not buy it because you wouldn't believe it. And that's one of the things that goes wrong with pricing, is like, the people that I'm talking to, they can legitimately make a huge impact for their clients. And sometimes they'll even do it for free and say, hey, just pay me later if it works. They're so desperate for clients and leads that they don't know what to do. And so that, of course, makes the client think, well, there's really no way. I mean, I'm not going to work with them. Nobody who actually can do what they say they're going to do would do it for that low price. And so you lose clients because of that. But the converse is true too, which is What about the people that are legitimately out there doing low value stuff, like just building a website, doing all these technical services for folks and just kind of putting the leadership role on the client and just saying, hey, just tell me what to do and I'll do it. But then they go ahead and say, well, I got to get more money. I'm just going to, double or triple or 5X my pricing. Well, they still have that low ticket offer, but now they've just, ramped up the price way higher than everybody else. And so they lose clients on that side too. And so the key then is to balance the price point so that the price is actually consistent with the offer. And when you go through that 5-step process, then you end up finding that you've got the technical tools and the business, mindset to really onboard clients at this high value rate on an ongoing basis. And it lets you scale your business to $5,000 to $10,000 per month consistently with a level of work that you can handle kind of on your own as a solopreneur. And then if you want to scale beyond that, you have recurring income and you have the ability to say, hey, you know what? I'm making $8K per month or I'm making $12K a month right now. I can bring somebody on to kind of help me do this. And you can do it with confidence because you have that income, as opposed to, man, I'm going to hire somebody, but I don't know what next month is going to bring. I hope it works out. And so you really have the stability to actually scale to pretty much at any level you want. And it's a huge win because it's kind of like we were talking about in the beginning of the call here, or the conversation here, which was, what's the most exciting thing about it? And the most exciting thing is you don't have to have that full-blown agency with all that overhead. You
Right.
can, in fact, you can drive these results kind of on your own. And it requires making a fundamental shift towards leadership and business concepts. Like I say, stop being like a WordPress business and become like a business consultant who powers the results with the WordPress ecosystem. That's really the inversion that we're talking about with regard to kind of going through the business side. So does that kind of make some sense?
No, that makes complete sense, and it provides a ton of value for Startup Nation to what you can get from DoubleStack. And Startup Nation, if that's something that you're very interested in, you can go to doublestack.net. We have the link there in the show notes for easy access. You can go ahead and get started with some of that coaching from Lee to kind of start to build your web development business and stuff like that from both sides, which is why it's called DoubleStack for sure. Thank you for sharing that, Lee. I appreciate that.
Awesome.
No worries. So, Lee, really quickly, man, I saw that you spoke at WooConference, the WooConference, down in Austin, Texas, back in 2016, right? We talked about payment security and stuff like that. We're going to talk a little bit about that in detail a little bit later. But, tell me about that process, man. How did you land that speaking engagement? How did you prepare? Where did you were you proud of the presentation after fact? And because the reason I wanted to ask you this is because content marketing has become a really big thing in entrepreneurship these days. So tell us how you landed that gig. How did you prepare? And were you proud of the presentation after the fact?
Yeah, that was a really fun event. And so it was an interesting. So that particular speaking engagement came from the fact that I also do e-commerce work. So I built this WordPress plugin. It's called Cart66, and that's been out there for like 7 years or so. In fact, it was one of the very first e-commerce plugins out there. And the reason that's why I actually built it, there was like 2 other plugins, and neither of them were designed to. I wanted to sell like a couple of products. I was doing the headphones like we were talking about.
Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to be able to put like one product on the page and sell it. Just that simple. Like I didn't have categories of products. I didn't have, a big catalog where you have to like sort it by price or alphabetically or anything like that. I just wanted to put a product on a page and sell it. And because I had headphones, it came in 2 different colors and that was it. And so, but I also wanted to be able to, sell the headphones from anywhere that I was talking about them, whether it was like an email newsletter, whether it was a blog post, the homepage of the website. In fact, I didn't really have a product page. Like the whole website was the product page. Like I would talk about like, what is a decibel and what does it sound like to reduce noise by 29 decibels? And what does that sound like in a home environment or an office environment or outside if you're cutting the grass or whatever it might be. And then like, as I'm talking about, I wanted to be able to sell the thing right there. And, but what began, and that worked great. Right. But the problem was people were like, hey, like PCI compliance, how do I make sure that the credit card payments are secure? And, what does that even mean? And so it began to be a situation where, people wanted to get into e-commerce, but the technical side of how to pull it off securely, so credit cards aren't getting stolen and all this stuff, that became somewhat of an issue. So we actually created a new platform to basically make a secure hosted payment page for folks. That's actually part of the Cart66 platform up until like basically right now. I'll talk about in just a second. There's a shift that we're making currently, but the way I got this gig in 2016 to do the WooConf presentation was because of this secure hosted payment page. And so we then took that hosted payment platform and opened it up so that other platforms could use it too, including WooCommerce. And so then, of course, I contacted the folks over there at the WooConf, the WooCommerce people. We went to a baseball game, went to see the Nats play in DC, and we got together with all the head tech folks over at WooCommerce, and this was right around the time that Automatic was purchasing the whole WooCommerce platform. And so from WooTheme, there used to be a company called WooThemes that started making themes, and they made this e-commerce plugin, and then Automatic, which is the company behind WordPress, acquired that. And so this was right around the time of that acquisition in 2016. And so we were hanging out and everything, talking about maybe building in this payment platform into WooCommerce, which we did for a while. And they said, hey, can you come and talk at WooConf about PCI compliance? And here's the thing that was crazy. It's like, so here I am. I run just a couple of people here, at this, that ran this platform with me. We're just kind of hanging out in Richmond, Virginia, whatever. And so I get there to Texas and we start, talking. And like the guy that was right before me was he was like the MasterCard person talking about PCI compliance and, payment security with MasterCard. Then it was me. And then it was like the PayPal guy. He was talking right after me about pretty much the same thing. And I'm like, I felt like that was this huge thing. How could I be sandwiched between MasterCard and PayPal? As if, that was really an eye-opening situation. But the thing that was even funnier was those guys were actually, I don't know if they were misinformed or didn't care enough to really, dig into the details. But in the context of like a small business, like, people like myself just selling headphones or whatever, the information that they were giving didn't really apply to these small businesses and really only applied to like large corporations. And so I thought that was kind of an interesting thing. And to be able to kind of set the record straight, because the PCI compliance, by the way, it's the payment card industry. That's what PCI means. And they're basically like the credit card police for online sales. And they've come up with a set of requirements for how do you do that securely. So your customers aren't getting their cards stolen, and there's not fraud and all that kind of stuff. But it applies to the business as a whole. It's not like a website thing. It's a business thing. So like if you're taking payments over the phone, or people are mailing in credit card numbers or whatever, there's stuff that you have to do for your business to become PCI compliant, not just your website. And so I was up there being able to talk about those types of things. Whereas everybody else is like PayPal, for example, they don't really care about your business. They care about PayPal. And so they were just talking about the payment side of things as opposed to like the whole business. So that's kind of how I got into that was, we built this payment platform and, connected in with the WooCommerce people, and they invited me to do that presentation. It was really fun, but things have changed. And so that was 2 years ago, and things changed so quickly.
Right.
And now it's the case that most of the major, payment processors like Stripe or whatever, you don't have to have a hosted payment page anymore to really make a secure connection. There's ways now, the technical ways, we don't have to get into all the tech part of it, but the idea is you can pretty much directly connect your website to these to payment processors like Stripe and have a secure connection there. And so you don't have to have that hosted payment page platform anymore. And so about a year ago, we kind of stopped accepting new customers for that. And we're kind of gradually sunsetting that whole hosted payment page concept in favor of easier, lower cost, better technology going forward. But yeah, so that's kind of an answer to that question about WooConf.
Gotcha. Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate that. And the reason I wanted to ask him that, Startup Nation, is because, like I said earlier, content marketing is becoming a big thing. So whether it be speaking engagements or podcasts or blogs, it really can propel your business to the next level. Speaking of podcasts, Lee has a podcast called the DoubleStack Podcast, and I have the link there in the show notes for easy access, so you can continue to get some of Lee's amazing value and content, in your web development business as you go forward to your path to entrepreneurship, for sure. We're going to go ahead and take a quick break. How you like being on Startup Life so far, Lee?
I love it. It's awesome. You're asking great questions. I really feel like this is a really fun conversation.
All right, Startup Nation. So I hope you're getting great value from Lee's content, but we got to pay a few bills. Once again, my name is Dominic Lawson. You listen to the Startup Life Podcast, and it is powered by the Binge Podcast Network. Hey business owner, the Startup Life reach is growing. Wouldn't you like your business to grow with it? Reach out to us to advertise on the Startup Life. You can reach us at 901-857-4818, or you can email me at dominic@askalsolutions.com. I mean, don't get me wrong, like this is a great music to have break on, but wouldn't this break sound a lot better with the same music but your business being advertised on it? Need more content from the Startup Life, you say? You can now sign up for the Startup Life All Access Pass on the Binge Podcast Network's Patreon page. There is exclusive content written by yours truly, video content where I share even more of my business philosophies, and whatever crazy content I can think of out of that crazy head of mine. And at only $5 a month, yeah, $5 a month, this is more content for you, Startup Nation, to really get ahead of your competition. So instead of upsizing that meal at your favorite fast food joint, you can now invest in yourself on your path to entrepreneurship. Click the link in the show notes to sign up. All right, Startup Nation, so let's continue. So Lee, on your website, doublestack.net, people can sign up for like a free weekly training class. Is that true? And let us know what we can get from that training class when we sign up.
Yeah, so I have two things that can happen on the website. One thing is the every Tuesday I have a Facebook group, and the name of the Facebook group is Building High Value WordPress Sites, and that's a free group. Anybody can join. And what I do is every Tuesday at 2:00 Eastern, I'll go on there and we'll talk about something, and it could be, how to get better clients, or how to combat the I can't afford that myth, like we were just talking about. Like, most of the time, when web designers approach a new client, the client's like, oh, I like what I'm hearing, but I can't afford that. And most of the time it's actually a myth, and they actually can afford that. They're just not connecting the dots on, how what you're planning to do for them is going to result in something that's going to have a positive return on investments. How do you fix that? And so that's just an example of one of the types of things we talk about. Other things are like, what if the client really is like a legitimate client? They really want to work with you, and they legitimately can't afford that. Like, what are some ways you can connect with them to make it worth your while and theirs, but still making it affordable? And so, like, we'll talk about things like how do you present affordable services without attracting cheap clients? So we'll talk about things like that. And all of that is to say that, what we do in that group is I try to do the best I can to provide like really detailed instructions on like how to connect in with clients more effectively. But it's a much larger forum. There's hundreds and hundreds, almost 1,000 people in the group right now. So you can't get but so one-on-one on that. So thing number one that you can do is you can connect in to that Facebook group. I repost the training sessions in the blog too. So you can kind of get, replays if you're not able to show up live and ask questions or whatever, you just want to check out the replay, you can do that. And then the second thing that I do is I offer a 45-minute free phone call. So if like this is the kind of stuff that you're interested in doing, and you want to be able to figure out how to raise your rates or connect in with clients more effectively, or kind of explore like what kind of markets really would be great for your particular interests and skill sets, and you want to get kind of more one-on-one, then I offer like a free 45-minute consultation, and we talk about that very stuff. And if it turns out that the things that we talk about on the phone call are things that you kind of want my help implementing into your business, then we can talk about like the DoubleStack program, which is an 8-week course where, I kind of come alongside and do these types of things with you. So like, that 5-step process we talked about with, dialing in your market, connecting in with your ideal clients,
right,
running those high value meetings, the proposals and the pricing. If you want my help with that, then I'll come alongside and do that stuff with you on, for 8 weeks. And so I'm finding that people are having tremendous success with that kind of a thing. Like, for example, one of the guys I was working with had never sold a website professionally to anybody before. Although he had awesome skills, he just couldn't connect with clients. He came in, we worked together, and his very first client was an $8,000 client right off the bat. Another guy that I'm working with, I think he's landed like $25,000 of new business in the last 6 weeks.
That's crazy. That's crazy.
And so the reason that I'm so confident that I can drive those types of results for folks is I'm not just throwing people into a course and saying, all right, there it is. I hope for the best. I actually come along and I do 3 things. I give you access to all the materials that you need so that you can build up the technical skill set that you need to drive business outcomes, so you can analyze your business skill set, how to write those proposals, do the pricing, that kind of stuff. And so there's an online course that does that stuff. Then I have a private Facebook group for the double stackers where we can get in and be in a community of like-minded people who are really interested in really serving their clients at a higher level. And then for 8 weeks, I actually come along and do this stuff with you on an individual basis, in the sense that like you have access to me through email. We work on proposals together, that kind of stuff. So anyway, all that is to say that free 45-minute call is to decide, how can you do better with the things that you're working on? Like, how do you connect in with the right clients? How do you get the pricing dialed in? All that kind of stuff. We kind of run through that in that 45-minute call. And if it sounds like that you kind of want to take it further and you want my help kind of implementing that stuff into your business, we can talk about that, see if it's a good fit for both of us. If it's not, that's totally cool too. It's not that 45-minute call is not a sales call for the program. It's really just to kind of help, point people in the right direction. If they want more help later, we can talk about it. But those are the ways that I really have been able to help folks, is with those free training sessions on Tuesdays through the Facebook group, with the replays on the website, and then kind of following up from those free training sessions with like a 45-minute call to really speak specifically to an individual person to say, hey, what are the things that you're struggling with, and can I help? Can I refer you to some resources? And like sometimes those calls will end up in a situation where like I can't help, like people that want to do something that's outside of my field of expertise, and that's totally cool too. But a lot of times what I'll find is people are like, yeah, I really want your help, and then we can work on kind of implementing the types of things that we've talked about, both in the training sessions and on that call, into people's businesses. So like if they're really committed to wanting to do better for themselves and for their clients, and they feel stuck in some particular way, then this is like the fastest track that I know of to get the results that they want. And that's really why I put the thing together in the first place, because there's places where you can learn how to build better WordPress sites or whatever. There's technical schools out there where you can learn it. There's also business courses out there that you can take to learn how to, get more leads or whatever. In fact, one of the women that I was talking to, she actually spent like thousands of dollars on it was like a lead generation course for how to get leads from LinkedIn. And I said, so how did that go for you? Did you like it? And she kind of paused, and it's like she was thinking about what the answer was. And then she said, well, I got a lot of leads, but I just didn't get any clients. And it turns out that she was missing the tech stack part of it. Like she knew how to do the business side of getting the leads to come in, but she didn't have anything behind it. So she wasn't able to close the leads. She wasn't able to convert the leads to customers because she didn't have the ability to actually do the things that she was proposing in the lead generation concept from LinkedIn. And so that was an example of where it's kind of like this marketing shell. Like she's got the marketing dialed in, she's getting leads, but she can't implement anything. She had a really hard time, having like the meat behind the shell of a business. And so that's kind of the whole idea of how I can kind of help that, if that sort of makes some sense.
No, that makes complete sense. Thank you for sharing that for sure. So, really quickly, man, I want to go back to the WooConference just a little bit.
Okay.
Talking about payment security and stuff like that, and we live in this era when we talk about websites and payment systems and stuff like that. We're in this era with e-commerce and payment systems where people are starting to hack for data, and it's more prevalent than ever before, right? And it's gotten to a point where even big corporations are susceptible to data breaches and things of that nature. So I think what you talked about at the WooConference was very important in that regard. So, if you would talk to Startup Nation and talk to those who, not only people who think about like creating a web development business, but those of us who have websites as well, talk about why it's so important that even if big corporations are susceptible to it, why we should be mindful of security and stuff like that, and not cut corners when it comes to security for our website and payment systems and stuff.
Okay. Yeah, that's a great question too, because security, and one of the big things that, like, I'll talk to people in a lot of really kind of open forums, especially on Facebook. And one of the main sources of flack that I get is that, WordPress sites are so easy to hack, and it's easy to kind of deface a WordPress site or whatever. And that kind of used to be more true than it is now, because, a lot of the things that involve security, one of the big, like if you could only do like one thing, the main thing to do especially with WordPress, is just to make sure that you update things on a regular basis, that you don't just build a website, let it sit there for a year, and then all the exploits that are discovered from a year ago are still open on your site, and then people can hack it. And so the way to overcome that is, just make sure that WordPress gets updated, the plugins get updated, and that's, there's automated ways to do that for the most part, so it doesn't take a whole lot of your time. But the benefit is, that now you've got all the latest security patches and everything applied, which is going to make your site a lot more secure in the first place. There's also hosting companies out there that kind of help with this as well. So with the automating of the updates, but that's like a really important thing. When it comes to payments, there's a couple of things that have really changed pretty dramatically over the past maybe year and a half or so. Whereas it used to be the case that the only way to really do a secure payment was to make sure that the payment page itself was entirely served up by what they call like a PCI compliant server. And there's all kinds of requirements to make that happen that are expensive to implement, and beyond the ability of someone who just kind of wants to sell some t-shirts or wants to sell some headphones or whatever, just too expensive to implement that. And so, but the good news is today, a lot of the best payment gateways, and I keep referring to Stripe as my favorite payment gateway,
Right.
And they're so easy to work with. There's no monthly contract. I don't even have any sort of affiliate relationship with them. I just like using them. And so, and the cool thing about them is like you can get set up like right away. Like you can literally go to their site and get an account like right now, and then you connect them with your bank account. So when you get paid, money just goes in every day if you want to. That frequently, you don't have to wait like for multiple days to get everything processed. And what they have a system in place where you can like connect your website directly to theirs with the way that they coded it up, so that whole situation, like all the payment stuff, comes from their server as opposed to your WordPress site. But it looks like it's kind of all on your WordPress site. So in terms of a user experience, it's very seamless. But in terms of the technical implementation, it's really secure, because all the stuff that involves like collecting payment information and personal information with regard to a credit card is actually served up from their secure environment rather than your own website. And when that happens, then all that really secure information is protected with all the stuff that they're putting in place. So that kind of makes it really easy to start selling things and really to launch an e-commerce site or a membership site or something like that all on your own without having all of the massive overhead. But other gateways, you want to look and make sure that, like some of the older gateways out there, they don't really have these types of things in place. And so you want to like kind of look through their terms of service, see if you're going to be charged any kind of PCI compliant, non-compliance fees. So there's some kind of gotchas out there with some of these older gateways. But
Right.
But hey, like if you just want to accept credit cards and you live in the United States or Canada or the UK or tons of different places, pretty much anywhere. Other than the Middle East, they don't have a lot of coverage in the Middle East. But anyway, all that is to say that if you have a business located in the United States or Canada, then go ahead and just get a Stripe account. And then if you do that, you don't really have to worry about the payment security, because their system is really modern and up to date. And like especially if you're on WordPress, then all the payment plugins that I know about do a really good job connecting in with them in a secure way. Does that kind of help get it at the point that you're asking about?
No, it absolutely does. Because the thing is, like, I always tell Startup Nation, like, look, man, like, because we think about Target and all those other big corporations. And I try to convey to them, like, look, if it can happen to them, it can happen to us too. But I'm not the computer science guy. You are. So it has a little bit more meat to that bone when it comes to you. So I appreciate you backing me up on that, Lee. I do, really.
Yeah, that's a great point. Another point, by the way, too, is like if you're asking somebody to make a payment with you, you wouldn't want to ask them to like email you their credit card, or if they send you their like say you mail out a piece of paper and somebody writes their credit card number on a piece of paper, then you need to like somehow destroy that piece of paper after you get it and process the payment in order to stay PCI compliant. And so one of the cool things that's out there now to kind of prevent that from happening is, instead of saying, hey, email me or paper mail me your billing information, you can do like what I call like buy now links, where you make a link to a particular product that you want somebody to buy and you just email them the link. Or like if you've worked with like QuickBooks or FreshBooks or any sort of invoicing, system, a lot of times rather than having them, send you the details for a credit card payment, sort of like, in plain text or whatever, those invoicing platforms allow you to collect billing information in a way that you're totally hands off. And so the absolute best way to be secure, especially when it comes to payment information, is to be 100% hands off and just have something else handle the payment, like whether it be Stripe or FreshBooks or some sort of a some sort of an application out there that allows your client to connect directly with some sort of a payment processor, and then you still get the money, but the processor handles all of the credit card information. And then when you do that, you're kind of in the clear. It's not really your responsibility to do anything anymore, because you never see that data in the first place. You couldn't do anything with it even if you wanted to.
Gotcha. Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate that. So it's not just me, Startup Nation. You heard it from Lee as well. So just want to make sure I point that out for sure. So Lee, let's switch it up a little bit, man. Tell me about your home life a little bit, your family. How has your wife supported your entrepreneurial journey? And then, when you think about your kids, right? And 30 years from now, when they ask, what's dad's legacy? What do you think they will say?
That's a cool question. I'll try not to get overly emotional, but whenever anybody asks me,
I'll put some nice music behind it. Go ahead, get emotional, man.
Yeah, it's like so I have 5 children actually.
Right.
And right now they range in age from 4 to 15. So my oldest daughter, she's about to drive a car and all this other stuff. So and then I've got my little guy. He's just 4, and he's like a firecracker, man. He's like a bottle of energy, and so and then everybody in between is just fantastic. And so, but when it comes to my wife, she has been, her name is Emily. And she's just an amazing person. Like, there's no way that I would ever be able to be, where I am today had it not been, for her encouragement and support. And like I talk to a lot of people like about, whether they want to invest in things or, build a website or whatever. And a lot of times they'll say, oh, let me go talk to my wife. And their wives oftentimes are just, they kind of put the squash on things a little bit because they're concerned. They're fearful, and they not of any malice or any sort.
No, of course.
Oftentimes they're like, I don't know, that's a lot of money to spend. I don't know if we should do it. And so that kind of holds folks back. But my wife, on the other hand, it's like, she just, like, her belief in my ability to pull stuff off is oftentimes even greater than my belief in my ability to pull stuff off.
Nice. Okay.
And so like, sometimes I'll even think to myself, man, it's like, it's just, this is such a great thing. I love helping people. Like this whole DoubleStack thing has just been huge. Like, legitimately, there's people out there, like one lady that I was working with, like, her husband just passed away a couple months ago, like literally just a few months ago.
Right.
And she's great. I mean, she can build websites. She can do design work. She can do, she's got a lot of skills, but she's like, and she needs to figure something out because she's got this tragedy on her hands. And like, it's just so freaking awesome to be able to connect with people like that and legitimately give them an actual business that will support their family and help them in a really short period of time go from, holy smoke, I have no idea what I'm going to do, to, oh, wow, I can't believe it's actually working. Like, I can't tell you how many people say, oh, it worked just like you said it would. And it's just really, really, really rewarding to be able to do that. And in fact, I'm working with this one guy, Charlie, and the very first time he onboarded, like, his first client, I think it was like a $3,000 client. And like, he said, well, it worked. And that was the subject of his email. And then he's like, I was talking to this client and they were like, shut up. Where can I sign? Let's stop talking about it. And then, so that was like on a Wednesday. And then like Friday, he sent me a text. He's like, whoops, I did it again.
Wow.
I was like, and that was like on his path to that 25 grand in 6 weeks, that situation, that was him. And so, but the cool thing is, like, to be able to connect with people like that. But I don't know if I would have had, like, if my wife had been the kind of person that was, that didn't believe in me or that didn't have, all of the confidence in the world.
Right.
I mean, I wouldn't have been able to establish this business and be able to connect with people that legitimately need this help. And so, kind of to answer the question about the children, like, what do they think? It's like, we all stay at home a lot. Like we homeschool the children. I'm at home a lot of times doing work, from my home office. Right. At home teaching the children. And so, like, we're really open about what's going on in the business and, how things are going. And like, sometimes, like, if we're starting up a new concept, it's kind of stressful, trying to get things off the ground. And then when it becomes successful, it's really great. And we can all celebrate together. And so what I hope 2 things, really. The first thing is, I'd like the children to see that, it's freaking hard work to start a business. There's I can make it simple, right? Like, I can say, here's the steps that you need to take to make this happen for you. but it's still freaking hard. Like nobody's going to do it for you. You have to get the grit to do it yourself, connect in with people that can help you, get the resources you need to succeed, but come with an attitude where you're going to freaking dig in and get stuff done.
Right.
And so, with that kind of in mind, I want the children to see, hey, doing hard stuff pays off. That's kind of thing number one. And the other thing that I'd like them to really see is that, if you genuinely care about people, if you really want to help other folks do better with their business, and you're not out there just trying. One of the things that I say a lot, kind of backing it up a little bit, there's a lot of web designers out there that are, and this probably applies to other businesses too, but I just kind of work in the web industry. So that are out there accepting projects at lower price points than they want to. And usually it's because they need the work, they need the money, they can build a good site, they want to do great work, right? They're not trying to scam anybody. But in the backs of their minds, they kind of know, hey, you know what? I'll build this website. They're going to pay me $1,500 or $2,500, whatever it might be for the site. But ultimately, nobody's going to be there to keep the ball rolling, right? And so it ends up kind of being this bad investment. And so there's this degree of guilt, maybe, kind of in the backs of people's minds that are kind of holding them back from, connecting in with more clients or whatever.
Gotcha.
And but if you can make that shift where you can legitimately and authentically show up and drive better results for your clients. Like the question that I ask myself is, what can I do that's going to make a better impact, a better result for the people that I work with? And before I do anything, whether it's set my price, figure out what services I'm going to offer, where I'm going to speak, what I'm going to do with my time every day, it has to be because it's going to make a better result for the people that I'm working with. And I want the children to see that as well. Like, it's not about just trying to, crank out some sort of a living. I mean, you got to do what you got to do, I guess. I don't know. But if you can do something that legitimately helps people in a genuine way and you care about them, then it just makes everything so much better. And one of the things it makes better, like a lot of times people say, hey, Lee, you know what? I don't know where to find clients. I don't know where to, I just can't find any clients. And then within like 5 minutes of talking to them, like I'll walk them through like this 4-step process to where to find clients. Within that, 5-minute 4-step process thing, we'll come up with a dozen clients, or maybe more than that, a significant number of potential clients that they could be working with. And I say, okay, well, why are you not reaching out to these people? And you know why they don't reach out? They don't reach out because they don't feel like the offer that they're going to present is something that's really going to benefit those people. Because sometimes the people are like their friends, right? Like maybe they have a dentist that they like, or maybe they go to a chiropractor, or maybe they know people from church, or maybe they work out at a gym with somebody. They don't want to wreck those relationships by offering them some sort of a business offer that doesn't pan out or doesn't work out or whatever. But if you change it so that I don't even call it selling. I usually don't even call it marketing. I call it serving. Because it's not a high pressure, multi-level marketing kind of thing. And when you feel comfortable going out and saying, hey, I've got some ideas that are really going to help your business. Here's how this works, and here's the kind of results you could expect from it. Do you want to do that? If someone says yes, fantastic, because now you're legitimately, helping someone's business. If they say no, okay, that's fine too. It doesn't matter. You still have the friendship. And so that's what I mean when I say, like, if you can legitimately get behind someone else's business and serve them better than anybody else, then that's just going to be better for you, better for them, better for everybody. And I want the children to see that if they can actually, have the grit, have the determination to do hard stuff in the context of serving the people that they want to be interacting with in a way that separates them from everybody else who's just trying to make a buck, then that's really the secret to success, both in your personal life and in your business life.
Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate that, because I think entrepreneurs, as they progress in time, they start to think about that legacy. So I kind of just wanted to get your take on that for sure. So Lee, I saw that you attend worship services fairly regularly, right? Mm-hmm. And so I was curious about how much does your faith shape the way you do business, in the sense of doing business with integrity and treating people fairly?
Oh, that's a great question. Nobody really asked me that question. That's cool to be able to have a chance to talk about that. I would say a ton, like 100%. And okay. And like one of the things people will ask me is, what kind of books do you read? To what kind of entrepreneurs do you follow? Where do you kind of get the guidelines for what you want to be doing next?
For sure.
And Of course, like I read books and so forth that, like right now I'm reading Extreme Ownership, that Jocko Wilkins book about, he's the Navy SEAL that talks about, leadership. And so I'm reading that right now. So like, of course I read books about, leadership and what's going on in today's business environment. But I get a ton of information about what to do, like straight out of the Bible. And so, and so what I mean by that is not any sort of like mystical tricks or whatever.
No,
like, for example, like here's one thing that I say all the time to people, and it's the situation, Caleb and the spies that are going in to see if they're going to, overtake the land, and they look out there and they see giants, and they come back and they tell their crew, hey, I don't think we can overtake this land. There's giants in the land, and we viewed ourselves as grasshoppers, and they viewed us as grasshoppers. That was basically the idea. And then of course Caleb is there saying, hey, you know what? Let's do this anyway. We can do it. This is our mission. This is what we're supposed to do. But the real business takeaway that I get from that, as an example, is, hey, if you view yourself as a grasshopper, other people are going to view you as a grasshopper as well. And so if you're trying to show up for a client with leadership and with confidence and with the integrity to lift them to a level of success that they can't get apart from you, and you're showing up as a grasshopper, they're going to be seeing you as a grasshopper. And so that's just one example of of how you can actually, take your faith and the lessons that you've learned there and apply that to your everyday business life. And instead of showing up as a grasshopper, show up as a leader and really, get the job done. If that kind of makes some sense.
No, that makes complete sense. Thank you for sharing that. And I wanted to ask that question because, I think people's faith, shapes and molds them on how to, not only how they, treat people on a personal basis, but how do they do the business dealings as well. So I just wanted to get your take on that. So I appreciate the value you just provided Startup Nation there for sure.
Well, thank you. Awesome.
No worries. So Lee, I think all entrepreneurs have a superpower. What's yours and why?
My superpower.
Yeah.
Let's see. Well, I think maybe if I had to kind of boil it down into one thing, I feel like I've a really, really strong ability to kind of, maybe the word is empathize.
Okay.
Without having to sympathize, if that makes sense. So what I mean by that is, like, I can connect in with a person and they can tell me their situation, whether this is a client that I'm working with through DoubleStack, whether it's, like a business owner I'm working with regard to building a website, whatever it might be. I have the ability to show up and listen to what they're telling me and really connecting in kind of on an emotional level with what they're going through, with the struggles that they're having, like the real life situation that's before us. Without it getting too cloudy with, technical implementation of how to do stuff. And I think, kind of right on the surface, that's a big thing, but not going so far as to into what I would call sympathy. Like, the difference between empathy and sympathy in my mind is empathizing means you can really connect with somebody, you understand what's going on, but you don't become part of their problem. Whereas with sympathy, you have the same sort of situation where they're telling you the situation that's a big problem for them, and you get so drawn into it that you're not really able to see the big picture or offer any sort of result. And for like a small example would be, kind of we talked about before, like people saying, "Hey, I can't afford that."
Right.
Instead of just saying, "Oh, well, yeah, no, you're in a hard time. I'm really sorry that things are going so bad for you. I know that you say you can't afford it. Well, maybe come back later. Maybe it'll be better or whatever." Instead of just kind of, that's what I would call sympathizing, where you're kind of getting so drawn into the person's personal situation or financial situation or whatever that you're not really able to offer solutions anymore because it's just too grave of a situation. Whereas with empathy, you can be like, "Hey, here's some ways that we can actually take into account what you're actually going through, and here's some ways to here's some solutions." So you connect in with the person. You're not trying to pressure them into doing something that's bad for them or uncomfortable. You're genuinely offering, the best, support that you can offer with regard to what you're talking about. And you're doing it in a way that is actually within reach for them. So like say for example, someone says, "I can't afford that." And they legitimately can't afford that. Well, what can you do to work with somebody so that you are able to offer your high value services, but still in an affordable way? And so, like one way, kind of right off the top of my head, would be like, what if instead of, trashing their whole website and everything that they've got right now, rebuilding everything for, $10,000 or whatever, what if instead of doing that, hey, well, what if you just left the website the way it was and you just did one thing, like the stuff that you might put into like that monthly retainer, like that you're kind of doing to kind of keep the ball rolling, kind of helping their business along with their online stuff. Well, instead of redoing their whole online platform, what if you just did one of the things that you would have put in the retainer and just kind of did the retainer first? And then as results started coming in, then you could kind of, that would fund doing more and more things. And so that's kind of what I mean with empathizing. So you take into account what's going on in somebody's life, and then, from that perspective, being like, hey, here's how I can legitimately help. Like, here's some solutions. And I think if I had a superpower, I feel like I'm pretty good at doing that, if that makes any sense.
No, that makes complete sense. I definitely think that's a superpower for sure. Thank you for sharing that. So before I ask the last question, man, I just want to say thank you so much for coming on the Startup Life. Startup Nation, thanks you for coming on the Startup Life. We got some very tangible and actionable value that we can use as soon as this episode ends. And so I want to thank you for that. And as always, Startup Nation, this is the Startup Life Podcast. Your host, Dominic Lawson, brought to you by the Binge Podcast Network. And so last thing, man, I'm going to turn the microphone over to you, Lee, because there's an entrepreneur out there, man. They're getting ready to quit. Or at the very least, they're getting ready to, they don't want to start their business. They got a good idea, but they don't want to start. Give them some words of encouragement today.
Okay, yeah. So here's the thing. If you feel like that you have the ability to do something really powerful for other people, and it could be in the context of it doesn't have to be a web design kind of business. It could be any business. If you feel like that you've got an idea and the ability to really do something for somebody, don't just hide that under a bushel. Again, with the biblical analogies or whatever. Don't just put your light or your lamp under some kind of a shade. Instead, take that idea and go with it. And so, but instead of just kind of, smashing your head against the wall over and over and over again, back up a little bit, look to see if there's a door there, and then go through the door and make the progress rather than smashing your head into the wall over and over. And the reason I give that example is because sometimes, in fact, I would say most of the time, when there's an entrepreneur getting ready to start and they feel like they're hitting up against the wall and they're not able to make the forward progress that they want, oftentimes it's like the concept of just, you're walking forward, but you just keep banging your head into the door, into the door, into the door. And so how do you fix that? How do you get around that problem? And the best way that I know how to do it is surround yourself with people who have done that before so they can give you some perspective. Find people that can help you, that have achieved what you want to achieve, maybe not in the exact same way, but kind of in the same arena. And what you'll find is you'll be sitting there, banging your head against the wall over and over and over, trying to make progress and not being able to. And somebody's going to come along and say, hey, you know what? If you could just back up a little bit, move over to the right 2 steps, then you can just go through the door. You don't have to bang your head anymore. And that's the kind of insight that finding, I don't know what you want to call it, like business coaches, mastermind groups, just some sort of a community out there. Because that's like the biggest thing that made the biggest difference in my life was when I finally reached out and connected in with people that could show me the stuff that I didn't know that I didn't know. And the stuff that was completely outside of my head, that was preventing me from making forward progress, that was causing me to continually repeat the same mistakes over and over again. And be serious about it. Like if the other thing that can kind of wreck your world with regard to running a business or anything. It's like if you feel like you have a good concept, a good business model, and you want to take that forward, but you're not fully committed to actually doing it. You're just kind of dabbling, and you have this indecisiveness, and that's the kind of thing. Like we talked about my daughter who's 15, and she's getting ready to start driving. I was like, hey, when you're driving, you can't sit in the middle of the road deciding whether or not to cross it. Either don't go at all, or go all the way. Right. If you go halfway, that's going to be a big problem for everybody. And gotcha. And I think the same thing applies to business. Like if you're going to go in all the way. And if you're not going to go, that's fine too. But don't just kind of sit there halfway, because that's going to burn you out. That's going to frustrate you. It's going to trickle out all of your resources. Just either go in all the way with the help that you need to get down the path. Find those people that can help you, and then dive in 100% and do it. Or, wait until that time, till your circumstances are going to allow you to do that. That kind of dabbling halfway kind of a thing is just a disaster. So that's kind of what I would advise in terms of kind of getting things started. And I guess if I had to say one last thing is, hey, be prepared for hard stuff to happen. So one of the guys that I talk to a lot, like one of the things he told me was, hey, if you're going to train to be like the heavyweight champion of the world, you're going to get punched in the face a lot,
Absolutely.
And so just be prepared for that. It's like, it doesn't mean you're doing anything wrong. It doesn't mean that you're on the wrong path. It just means that if you're going to do something hard, it's going to be hard. And just kind of brace yourself for that and have the mindset. Like, the mindset comes from the people that you surround yourself with. Like, hopefully your wife will be a really strong encouragement, and so will your children if you have them. Your friends, like if you go to church, that community can, be a really strong boost and encourage you and, help you out with, the mindset side of things, kind of keeping that together. And that's the whole thing. It's like, you have to actually be prepared to really do hard stuff, be committed to doing it, and surround yourself with people that have done that sort of a thing and can help you along the way. If you do those things, then you really have set yourself up with a really high percentage chance for success.
Got you. Thank you for sharing that. And with that answer, that's going to wrap up this session of the Startup Life. Lee, did you enjoy being on the show, my man?
I loved it. It was fantastic. You thought of really great questions to ask, and I really appreciate the opportunity to be able to, to be on here with you and talk about this stuff.
No worries. All right, Startup Nation. So here's my final take. When it comes to Lead Blue, two things come to mind. The first one is this. Startup Nation, on your path to entrepreneurship, you're going to come across people who have a wealth of knowledge. Lead Blue is one of those people. He not only talks about, building a web design business and web design tips and tricks, but he also gave here on the Startup Life podcast tips and tricks for just general entrepreneurial knowledge. The one that really sticks out is the one where he talks about making sure you're getting the full worth of your product or service that you sell. Don't undersell yourself. Make sure you get what you feel like your product or service is worth. Also, Startup Nation, when Lee talked about his faith in attending church regularly, he's putting it out there for the world to see. No regrets, no remorse. And look, I'm not saying that, you should or you must, share your faith with the world and this, that, and the other, but it really speaks to, more importantly, on your path to entrepreneurship, be honest with yourself and be transparent, with your customers, because I think that ultimately leads to a better business, but more importantly, a better you. If you want to let us know what you think about the show, have an idea for a show topic, or like to advertise on our show, please send us a message on the Startup Life Podcast Facebook page. And while you are there, like and follow our page as well. It's a way for us to engage with you, Startup Nation, and really grow our community. The link is here in the show notes. Subscribe to the show, as it can now be heard on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher Radio, Spotify, or whatever your favorite platform to get your podcast on. If you are listening on Apple Podcasts and you find our content valuable, please give us a 5-star rating, as it will help us climb the charts and help more people find our show. Also, don't forget to sign up for the Startup Life All Access Pass to get exclusive content. This is exclusively on the Binge Podcast Network's Patreon page. And hey, if you have an idea, be about that life. The Startup Life. You still here? Looking for more content? All right, fine. Here.
So I was really obsessed at one point with winning it, and finally I made it my mission in life. After not winning in 2007, I really just got more serious than ever in as far as my training, and I maybe was over prepared in 2008 in that I won it pretty easily in 2008. I crushed people in a lot of the events that year, because I really, the best way to describe it was just my obsession and mission in life to win the competition that year.
Startup Nation, that is Chester Santos, the International Man of Memory. So if you want to get this episode as soon as it goes live, go ahead and subscribe to the Startup Life podcast on any of your major podcast platforms. So that way, when that episode goes live with Chester, it'll be right there waiting for you. So in the meantime, Startup Nation, get out of here. You got a company to grow.